I will do this again. Our next presenter is a woman that I met at WWDC a few years ago. She's a really incredible designer. She worked on Siri. No, nothing. But one of my favorite things about Lia Napolitano is that she is a lady with whom I can have really intellectual discourse on gender, politics, and technology about while watching Cocktails with Chloe. And that really happened, non-ironically. So here to talk about weird technology and Joaquin Phoenix today is Lia Napolitano.
Okay, thank you. Hey, I'm going to have a sugar crash in the middle of this. I don't know how you guys feel. It's fine. Cotton candy is excellent. I am Lia Napolitano, and I'm going to talk about weird technology. And it's a term that I use all the time to describe the scope of technological problems that really interest and excite me. I have not heard a lot of people use it, so I will define for you what I mean. Weird technology. It is the category of things that we think of when we think of modern technology that is not quite there yet, but could be, and it'd be really exciting if it were. So sort of, this is a weird child. A lot of technologies that are interesting start out this way. They have a lot of potential and promise, and they're just kind of goofy, and we aren't ready to see that technology and that vision and that concept actualize itself yet. The technological components aren't there. So sometimes the technological components are there, and yet the way they come together, this one Gertz, she's awesome. This lipstick robot kind of puts lipstick on her mouth, but it's not quite the fully actualized vision that we all might have in mind for the future. So then weird technology though, what's cool is there's this trajectory where someone recognizes, this is just going to be really distracting, but I'm not going to stop it. Where somebody recognizes that some of the technology is there and we can apply it and we can make something really beautiful and follow from this other Oxford definition of weird, which is suggesting something supernatural. So this is a fashion design by Iris van Herpen, and her work is also super cool. And instead of making shitty robots, she makes beautiful collections using the latest in 3D printing technology that she plays around with. And once she actually works in the material, what's possible, she decides what the form will be and what will walk down the runway. But you don't see many people wearing her pieces because they're super expensive sculptural things, and also because this isn't really normalized. This is not the 80s conception of the future where everyone has a silver jumpsuit and a 3D printed bodice. Weird technology, though, weird things that are beautiful and cool bring us closer to what eventually, or initially is really exciting and eventually becomes convention, a way in which things are usually done. And so multi-touch technology is one of those things that, people were really hype about it in the 1970s. This is a photo of an early multi-touch surface prototype from CERN in the late 70s. And before then, people were looking at capacitive touch technologies to use in synthesizer experiments. It's old school. And it could not exist the way it does today for a really long time. So you see that you have these two axes. One is feasibility, and one is desirability. And in the beginning, for a lot of cool, weird things that we want, it starts out as a concept, not feasible at all, but really desirable and cool, and I want it now. A series of constrained attempts as the technology is moving along, but it just isn't there yet. And maybe once you get to what you can do, and get to what you can do, you haven't gotten to the point where you can also actualize the vision. And so that's where it's in the realm of the possible, but we need to remember what would make it sexy and why we were excited to wake up in the morning about multi-touch in the first place. And in 2006, this dude, Jeff Hahn, did that at a pretty large scale. He had been a researcher in a math lab at NYU. He went on stage at TED and said, "You guys, I have this really dope thing to show you. It's a huge multi-touch surface, And we can now produce these things at fairly low cost, and relatively low cost. We can do it with high fidelity. These interactions, like you can pinch and zoom, and it feels really natural. This is the kind of application that is a catalyst, and it's the kind of visibility that can really catalyze industries and players in an industry to say, oh my God, wait, we can do that, and we can sell it to people, and we can make a convention. And so a year later, in 2007, Apple announced the iPhone, and it used multi-touch, and they had acquired a company in 2005 that gave them the technology to do this. So of course, Apple said, we invented multi-touch, which is awesome of them. But it is awesome for all of us, because now we all, even if we don't have Apple products, I think most people in here do, we get to just do this to our phones, and it's now a component that is the norm, and that's really cool. So I would say that we are at an exciting time. We are at an exciting time because there are so many modern technologies that are weird. I would say that they are not yet fully formed. I would say that what we see from virtual reality is squarely in the possible, not the exciting catalyst. It's more weird in the definition from Oxford of uncanny, the weird crying of a seal. This guy knows what I'm talking about. And so I like to I'm going to take you back to 2013. I was working on Siri, and one thing you might, I don't know how you know this about me, one of the things I worked on for Siri was I was leading design for Siri on Apple TV, so thought it would be a nice opportunity to go to 2013 and tell you about what was and is a catalyst for how people thought about AI. And then I'll tell you how we thought about it, how I thought about it at that time on the team, some of the constraints that I saw. And then we'll talk about this weird technology of AI, voice, all of these intersections, and some principles we might want to think about applying to our own work and to any work where we're using those new technologies and what we want to make it the norm. 2013, people started asking Siri this question. Siri, are you her? The movie Her had come out. And we wrote a lot of snarky things that Siri would say if you said this. One of them was like, Joaquin, is that you? Not necessarily our best, but I think that, but also kind of funny. What I like about this one is we were flattered, or I was flattered as a member of the team to have people say, oh my God, I've seen this vision of talking to my phone and it not being weird and it actually making things really cool. Granted, people were excited, not because of Joaquin, but they were excited because they liked the thought that you could have Scarlett Johansson whispering in your ear and she would fall in love with you. And she would also help you check your email. So the thing that I think is really exciting when I went back and rewatched Her, the thing that's really exciting is looking and saying, in a society where everybody has an earpiece, and it's sort of customary to be mumbling something at all times, you get to take this concept, which is just an artificial intelligence that's everywhere and you can talk to, and then you say, no, but there are aspects of this story that explain how possible this is, and then you could argue that a lot of the technologies that are shown are fully formed enough that they could at least catalyze some really good, solid work. And I'm going to walk through some of the component parts of technology in Her that are at varying levels of intelligence, and then we'll talk about some of the ways they show up in the film and some principles for you. Cool, so OS 1. OS 1 is the operating system name that they use in the movie Her. Joaquin Phoenix is kind of in a bummer mood, and he's walking through a mall, and these giant automated kiosks tell him he should buy this new operating system. So that's what kicks off the plot. He goes home. He goes to his desktop computer. He's installing the operating system. It asks him a few questions about himself. And then that operating system is also connected, or in some way reflected in his phone's OS, which has a camera and a screen. Those are the two screens that you see a bit of in the film. What OS 1 is promising, and what Scarlett Johansson is promising, is not only artificial intelligence, where your computers can learn your habits and what you like and what you dislike and what you dream of, it is also promising that it's going to draw all of that information from a lot of different sources. It's just kind of creating this data mesh, and all of that information is being revised as it goes. It's truly intelligent, and it's learning. And a voice interface is the dominant way that you see him interact with this operating system. Other cool things that show up, so he has this projector that he uses to play video games. I will talk about it a little bit because I think it shows a version of gaming and augmented reality that tells this story very well, but is also really beautiful and exciting, and I would say, kind of catalytic. And then there's some kind of gesture recognizer, so he's sitting in front of, he's doing this. This is him running as a video game character. And then other pieces of technology, there's an earpiece that is pretty much everywhere in the film. Everyone has one. They're talking to their phones. If you don't have OS 1, it seems like a voice control thing where you say, like, read email. And then another piece of technology, which kind of goes to how, like, this film focuses on a system of devices, a system of connected devices, is this little beauty mark camera that you see, where basically it's a camera feed that is going into, like, the operating system is then looking at the feed coming in, and there's some kind of computer vision happening, some processing going on. Okay, so I'll talk about the experiences that we see and why, again, all of these completely technically viable technological components, these are all viable to some extent. They could come together in this way, and I'll talk a little bit what's interesting, what isn't really there yet from what I know about some of these technologies, and then what we can look forward to and how we can try to build. So, OS 1 experiences. Joaquin Phoenix, he's talking to his computer. He's setting up his new operating system, and it asks him, how would you describe your relationship with your mother? So this setup experience is not at all like this. If y'all, I'm assuming we're all here for Linda's awesome talk about the Latitude Society. This is a little bit less scary than crawling through like a furry tunnel to set up your experience. But being asked to describe your relationship with your mother is also pretty weird, and like maybe uncomfortable for a lot of people. It seems to be for Joaquin Phoenix. And what I think could be happening here that's really cool, so okay, we have these two surfaces. We know there's a camera on the phone. It's not pointing at him, but it's possible that there are cameras everywhere in this movie. So it's possible that it's paying some attention to just like facial recognition, his expressions. But I am certain that the way this could actually be a useful question to ask during setup is sentiment analysis. Like you're kind of also learning about this person's affect. If you ask someone about their mother, they're most likely to answer with awkward, or they are possibly likely to answer with awkward pauses, and anybody who has used Siri realizes that voice interfaces don't always know how to handle awkward pauses. Sometimes they're just like, oh good, you're done talking, like I will do the thing. Sometimes it then just listens to all the surrounding noise. So this actually could be a really interesting way of training a voice system on your patterns of speech that are typical, and also how weird your voice gets when you are describing your mother. Another experience, so Joaquin Phoenix, super in love with his phone. It's going great. They're frolicking through a market, and he's just holding the phone out in front of him, closing his eyes, and the idea is that Scarlett Johansson is like telling him what to do. So what's happening here, he's just walking around, you don't really see where he's going, and she says, now say, I'd like a slice of cheese, please. And he does, and he opens his eyes, and she's brought him over to a pizza vendor. Very convenient for him. This is not viable. This is not happening right now, to my knowledge. This is not like your common edge detection, computer vision. This is some really, really hardcore stuff where it's understanding proximity, that this is the shape of pizza vendor is also very, like, space is very specific. I feel like if I were this computer, I would want to be able to sense what it smells like. Does it smell like pizza? That would maybe be helpful. So it's processing a lot of signals that today we don't know how to do. But I think what's really interesting here is that that Samantha, which is the name of Scarlett Johansson, and incidentally is the name of the first Siri voice, if you look at the system name. Samantha and Joaquin are building this relationship. There's an understanding of normal human activities like needing food, wanting food, and there's a whole bunch of cool stuff going on here. So last thing I just wanted to point out, there's this really cool experience where Samantha asks Joaquin Phoenix, do you want me to email Olivia Wilde? And so he was playing a video game, he got an email, she told him about it, he flicks it to his screen, and there's a region of the screen that is active, and his video game character is interacting with it too. So this actually seems kind of possible to me. Once you know what devices are connected, to this artificial intelligence, and you know what item is currently selected, and you also know the current activities, playing a video game, this region of space up here is not that important for him right now, then you feel safe putting it up there. And also what's interesting is that there's some sense of the X, Y, and Z coordinates of that. And so his video game character is able to see and interact with it too. I feel like all of this is possible. I don't know necessarily why you would be able to, maybe the smoke screen required to project this is not. Other cool thing also here, it's clearly looking at the bounds of the room and building the environment around that, which I find really, really exciting. So some principles that I think we can take away from this movie, which is, again, just like a catalyst. It's beautiful. It's still in this concept world, but we can apply to designing with weird technology and for weird technology and designing the weird technology. One is choose your values. I think in this film, so this is Joaquin Phoenix about to hook up with someone who's pretending to be his computer. Just watch the movie. It kind of makes sense. She's wearing a little camera here so that his artificial agent is able to, his intelligent agent is able to see him and process that data. So this could have just been, she popped in some contact lenses that glowed, and then you know that there's this weird sci-fi thing happening. This is clearly a society that has taken a different approach. It's not about looking really edgy and kind of obvious and like a cyborg. It's about mimicking what already exists. And I think that actually creates this feeling of safety. And you can build safe things that are really cute and interesting. This is in Japan. When you're doing construction in Japan, you get these Hello Kitty stanchions that you use to support the fence around your construction site. That's crazy, but it's really safe and it's really beautiful. And that value is coming up here. Another is to connect back to reality. So throughout this film, all of these device experiences are not just trying to encourage him to live in device land. His intelligent agent is trying to set him up on a date and insists on pulling together his email, his calendar, her Facebook to make this happen. And you, again, see that here. This is connecting with reality. It's occupying the space that he's in. It's projecting over it. It's not forcing him to sequester himself away from reality in kind of a casino-like effect where you don't know what time it is. You're alienated. I think that a principle that is, when you are designing, one to avoid alienation from society is a good one. Last one is just that I really believe in technologies that work together. I don't believe that this is a movie necessarily only about Scarlett Johansson and Joaquin Phoenix. It's a story about what can happen when our devices work as a community, and when we build services and structures for our data that can connect to each other and learn from each other. I think today, most people who are making this kind of hardware are also tied very tightly to their software, and when that happens, we risk losing the ability to have these devices provide a rich experience when one company cannot provide it. I would say, yeah, this works because of the intersection of all of these things, and that is really exciting, and I like the idea of us aspiring to that. So, weird technology, it's broken. This isn't real, but wouldn't it be awesome if it were? I would say that if we can all look at the products that we're building and try to connect these technologies and experiences to each other, connect people to people, we might actually find ourselves moving from this connected devices, artificial intelligence concept and realm of possibility and actually move to something that really is convention, and I think that would serve us all really well. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Lia.